Okay. Hey, you guys. Welcome to the Birth Stories podcast. Today's guest is someone who I guess you could say she's like our resident sleep consultant. I don't know. I'll let you explain that a little bit more. But our guest today is Nikki Smith. Nikki, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're taking the time to join us. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead and just tell us a little bit about first, I guess, when you joined street parking and who you are in the world, let's say like maybe outside of or separate from motherhood.
Okay. So street parking, it's really funny how I even found out about it. My husband and I were really big into CrossFit before I had kids and before we moved home to Colorado. Mm-hmm. And I had been looking for something, but it was like all of the gyms around us, like nobody had childcare and all that. And my husband came home from work one day and he's like, I have this friend who said something about, I think it's called like street parking. And he's like, I don't know if that actually has anything to do with working out, but he's like, you have to check it out. And so it was the beginning of 2019 and I got on and I was like, this is perfect. Like it's exactly what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. Being able to work out at home, but have things programmed for us and kind of able to move it around for what we have. So that's kind of how I found street parking and it's been amazing. And outside of being a mom, we love like camping, hiking, being outside. I lived in California for about a year and a half and then in Georgia for 4 years. And so cool. We came back to Colorado the end of 2015. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so happy to be home. I am a high school counselor and a pediatric sleep consultant. So I just love helping people. Like that's what I do.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's amazing. You are helping multiple generations of humans.
Like the beginning of, childhood and like the very end of it before they become adults. So I think it's funny to kind of bookend those.
Yeah. Do we become adults at the end of high school? I'm not totally sure.
Well, I mean, I think that's what we have to say.
Right.
Some people more than others, I guess.
I think I was delayed a little bit. Okay, so, I really was excited to bring you on to hear your experience with pregnancy and birth, but I also just wanted to take a second to get to know you as a sleep consultant just a little bit better because mm-hmm. I know that you've helped a lot of the women on the Street Parking Moms Facebook group, and I reached out to you like late one night randomly, and I just thought I'd give you a chance to share a little bit about that work, and I don't know if there's anything you want to offer out to the moms community.
Yeah, so it kind of rolls into like my story of becoming a mom, how I got into being a sleep consultant. After my second son was born, I was in a bad spot and just super desperate for some help. And so I actually reached out to Sleepwise Consulting and hired one of the consultants to work with me and with our baby. Mm-hmm. And it was just life-changing. It was so, I just can't even tell you how big of a difference it made and an impact on our lives and my sanity and my health and everything. And so just throughout that process, I had started talking to my consultants and just kind of off the cuff one night was like, how do you even begin to do this?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked. I've been talking to our founder and owner about you kind of throughout this process and everything. And so just started looking into it. And then decided to kind of take that leap earlier in 2019 and went through the training and mentoring and all of that. And then I love it. It's just so rewarding. Yeah. I feel like it aligns so much with, like the street parking community and what you all are doing for people and just making a difference to make people feel whole again. So that's why I love it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then I guess let's go. Tell me about your kids. How many? What are their names? Their ages? And you can start like with your pregnancy story. Wherever you want to start.
Perfect. So I have two boys, crazy boys, but Preston is 3.5. Actually today, 3.5 today, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
And then my youngest son, Jameson, is 20 months old. He'll be 2 in March. So they're right about 21 months apart. 2 under 2 is insane, which I think was like part of kind of everything that was going on. But I feel like I always wanted to be a mom. A lot of times I feel like people have goals of a lot of other things, but it was like my life goal is to have kids. Like I thought I would have a lot of babies, but, and in 2014, my husband and I were like, okay, like, we got to kind of get on this. We're not getting any younger, and there's always going to be something making us feel like we should wait longer.
Yeah.
And so we decided to, like, I guess, start trying, not preventing or whatever you want to say, and got pregnant our very first try.
Wow.
Which was, it was insane.
Surprise.
So crazy. Super exciting. We were still living in Georgia at the time. And I was just like, I don't know, just thrilled to be pregnant. And it was probably like around, I don't know, like the 5th or 6th week. I just woke up one day and I just felt different than I had been feeling, like not better or worse. It was just like, I don't know, like just my body was like, something was different. So I went in, got some blood work done, and they were like, everything's good, no problems. So we just kind of kept rolling through, like had told everybody that we cared about, that we were expecting, and then went in for our first ultrasound right about 9 weeks, and found out that I had a missed miscarriage. Our baby had stopped growing like right about 5 weeks, like probably right when I was feeling like something was off.
Wow.
And so that was hard. Like having your first pregnancy kind of end in loss was super, super tough. And I feel like it took us a while to get over it. And so then, of course, I feel like a lot of people, we were like, okay, like we got to get back on this, like get pregnant again, all of that. And it took until the next September, so almost a year. I had to have a DNC and then went through a bunch of testing why I couldn't get pregnant again so fast.
Wow.
And it was kind of crazy. And my husband was in the military, and we had decided to separate from the military and move home to be around family, and just kind of put all of that on hold because nothing was happening. So we didn't have jobs. We didn't have a house. We moved home. We're living with his parents. Just like all kinds of crazy stuff. And then 5 days later, I woke up because I was having a dream. I was telling people I was pregnant, and like probably a lot of women who have been trying to conceive, of course, I had, pregnancy tests on hand. So decided to take one, and lo and behold, like we're living with his parents, and now we're having a baby. So it was crazy. It was just a whirlwind, like trying to then find jobs and find a place to live and all of that. But I loved being pregnant. I was definitely one of those people. I was really like nauseous with my second pregnancy almost the whole time, but I just loved being pregnant. It was super fun. At the very end, I don't think that they ever said I had preeclampsia, but my blood pressure started doing funky things.
Mm-hmm.
So we were closing on our first house. I was like begging my OB not to induce me until after we closed. So we closed on June 9th. I had my son on June 10th.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy.
I mean, I wonder if some of the stress and the excitement of the closing and the house maybe had an effect on the blood pressure. Or it's crazy what some of that stuff can do. Especially at the end of a pregnancy, and you're like waiting for the timing, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. I don't know, but it went pretty smoothly. I feel like being induced is always kind of, at least from other women, like it's nerve wracking, and there's just, it's like a lot of like the Pitocin and all of the stuff that you have to go through. And I was progressing like super slowly. I went in at I think it was 6 a.m. that morning, and the OB about 6 p.m. was like, all right, like you're here for the long haul, probably tomorrow morning. And I did get an epidural, and then it was probably like 8 o'clock that night. I was kicking everybody out that was camping in our room. Like, I need to get some sleep and had probably just fallen asleep and then started feeling like just different pressure. And I was like, maybe this is normal. Like maybe this is how contractions feel after you get an epidural. I'm not sure, but it started getting more and more. And so I looked at my husband. I was like, I think you need to call the nurses. And so they came in and checked me and they're like, oh my gosh, like you're fully dilated, like baby's coming down. Like we got to get somebody in here. And they paged the doctor, but she didn't really believe them that I had dilated that fast. So she was kind of taking her time to get there. So she barely made it in time. I think and I hate saying this to you, so I apologize, but I only pushed for like maybe 5 minutes.
Hey,
and
that's your experience. There's going to be some other women out there that have the same thing. I had the opposite experience, but hey, to each their own. Okay, so let me pause you for a second there. It was this, did you go into birth with this plan where you were like, I want the epidural, I want, these people who was in the room with you, that you were like, okay, you guys got to leave and I got to get some sleep. Was it family or was it like hospital staff?
Family.
Okay.
Like they were there earlier. It was like, I am the oldest of me and like I have my younger brother of biological siblings and I have step siblings, but it was my mom's first biological grandchild. So she wanted to be in there. But for actually giving birth, I was like, only my husband I just can't handle it. So booting everybody out.
Okay,
Yeah, I did go in wanting the epidural. I just was like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't feel like I could handle kind of going through all of that.
Yeah.
And so I went, that was really the only plan that I had. I was like, everything else, I'm just going to like not worry about it because I can't control all of it. So
yeah, I don't think we can control any of it.
No.
But it sounds like you did have a choice to have control over the epidural, and that was, one way of doing it for sure. So
yeah.
Okay, so then doctor makes it in time, barely, and everything. How does it go from there?
This birth, it was great. I mean, it seemed, I guess, like easy in the world of things, but we chose to do, I don't know if they call it the same thing everywhere, but like the golden hour where it was just the three of us, really focusing on skin to skin, getting him to start latching and all of that. And so just like enjoying that hour of time with just the three of us and kind of becoming a family and soaking all of that in. I struggled with breastfeeding like I think a lot of moms do, especially with my first baby. And where I gave birth, I don't think that there was real good lactation support. So, they started having me use like a nipple shield and all of that, which I think ended up kind of stopping our actual nursing journey a little bit prematurely and stuff down the road. But, everything else, like I was very surprised at my body, like how fast I felt okay, like to get up and kind of move around. And I mean, not good, but it just was, I don't know. I just am amazed at what
the body
can happen.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How fast would you say that you did feel good, I guess?
I mean, as far as physically, within probably 2 or 3 days. I mean, not like back to 100%, but enough where I wasn't like miserable at moving around and those kinds of things. So
amazing. Awesome. And was your struggle with breastfeeding, was it related to pain or was there a supply issue or kind of both?
He nursed pretty well, I would say, for about 6 weeks. And then it was just, I could just tell he wasn't like staying on long enough to get what he needed. And so I started pumping and then bottle feeding him breast milk, and it went really well. I think what happened was he has, and I didn't really find this out until he was about 2, but he had a really significant lip tie that his pediatric dentist was the one that found out, and we had to have that revised later. But I think that kind of led to some of the issues that it just, like he wasn't able to latch on like he should have. So I ended up pumping for a year for him so that he had breast milk for a year. And it worked for us and, just kind of went on with it. But yeah, he was not happy with nursing. He was just like, I'm done with this.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. And so from there, the postpartum recovery, like physically, were you feeling pretty good? Did you start getting back into like a fitness routine or anything like that?
Yeah, not as much as I would like, not as consistent, because at that time I just didn't know what to do. It wasn't like I could, where we live, it's not super close to anything. And then trying to figure out, at that time, my husband was working really weird hours, like 12-hour shifts, sometimes overnight. And so it was like by the time I got done working, I had to come home and then he was gone. And so just logistically couldn't really figure out anything like consistent to do. So it was just kind of doing like random little things as much as I could, trying to go for walks or jogging or whatever it was, just to do something active, but not as much as I should have.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that's such a funny thing. It's like when you're a new mom, I think the only thing we should feel like we should be doing is just being a mom, being a new mom. So it's like, sure, the exercise, obviously, like it's important, and it's important for the mental health and taking care of yourself and being able to be a better mom and partner and all of that. But it sounds like you were doing everything you should, have been doing.
It was just like, it was something I wanted to do, and it was just like trying to figure out how to make it happen was tough.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you only have like a 10-minute window or a 20-minute window, and you're like, I really could just use a hot shower, or I really just need to like sit here and stare at the wall for a minute, and like
definitely
that feels like a vacation. I feel like there's enough pressure on us to be doing all of the things. God, it sounds like you were, the pumping for a year and everything. Like, that's a lot. I know how time consuming that can be. So that's a lot. Okay. And so that was with Preston.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you want to jump over to Jameson?
Yeah, that was a much different experience for me, for sure.
Okay.
Still, the pregnancy, it was fairly easy. Like I said, I was a lot more sick with him. Like, I thought for sure he's a girl, because it was just, I felt so different. But he wasn't, which is great. But I again had to be induced because I was having blood pressure issues. Like, it was so weird for me both times, because it was like everything was great, and then almost like, well, with Preston, I delivered him at 40 weeks in one day. And so it was like 3 days before then, all of a sudden I have these blood pressure issues. And Jameson was like about a week before my due date. And so I was just monitoring at home, and I was actually in a meeting for work and was checking my blood pressure, and I don't remember what it was, but definitely over where it should have been. And so I called my OB, and she's like, yeah, you need to go ahead and head into the hospital, and we'll kind of see what things are doing. But I got there, again, was induced with him, and things started going kind of the same way, but he just would not like come down into the birth canal. And I thought for sure I was going to end up having a C-section, because I felt like they were doing so many things to make stuff happen. Mm-hmm. They ended up breaking my water several hours in, and then it was almost like then there wasn't enough fluid around him when I was contracting. So then they were putting something back in me to put more fluid in me to like kind of cushion what was going on.
Like through an IV?
No, like in me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I also had an epidural then, probably thankfully, because I don't think I would have wanted to do all of that. But so it was a while. And again, same kind of thing. And I had kept telling the nurses, like, once I get to about 6, I'm going to go like 6 to 10. Like, it's not going to take any time. That's exactly what happened with my first son. But I feel like sometimes, I don't know, they didn't listen. And so again, I was like, okay, like we're there. This baby's coming right now.
Wow.
The doctor wasn't there. So this was a different hospital. So they had to page her and she wasn't even in the hospital. So I'm in there like gripping the sides of the bed and they're like, don't push. And I'm like, I seriously like can't not push. Like this is miserable. And I think it took like, I don't know, 35 minutes or something for her to get there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so it was like 2 pushes and he was out, and turns out his umbilical cord, it was wrapped around his neck. And then another part of it was in a knot. So they put him right on me. But he was pretty blue. And so they took him away, which I think it was honestly it felt like forever, but probably like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he pinked right back up and came over and everything was fine. He was an awesome nurser, like took right to breastfeeding. He was a little chunk, like he loved to eat. And recovery was good with him physically too. I had a big struggle after him with postpartum depression and anxiety. So that's kind of where I feel like his birth story is a lot different. Just that recovery was a lot tougher.
Okay. Before we get into that, do you is that okay? Would you be?
Yeah, that's totally fine. Mm-hmm.
You were saying that they were like doing a bunch of different things to try to get him to change positions or drop down or something. Was it like changing, besides the putting more fluid in you, was there something else? Were like they having you move around, or were they doing something else? What happened there?
Yeah. Like laying on different sides. But it was almost like he only liked one side. And if I laid on, I don't remember which side it was, but the other side, like he would throw off the monitors and like kept like kicking the thing off of my belly where it should be. And we used the peanut ball to try and get him to drop down. And that just like, he just wasn't, like it was making me not dilate like I should, because his head wasn't down there kind of like pushing that to happen, at least from what I understand. And so, yeah, it was just like a lot of moving around, changing the dosage of Pitocin, watching the contractions, breaking my water. Like it just felt like so much, like so much more than what I went through with my first son. And so I don't know. I just was like, I'm going to have a C-section. And afterwards the nurses were like, no, like that wasn't even, we knew this was like going to work out. And I was just like, well, somebody could have said that. Like, I was just so nervous. Which, I mean, obviously it's like, it would have been fine, but it just, the unknown was kind of, after I had gone through it one way, just expected it to happen the same way the second time.
Yeah. I think it's helpful to have someone telling you like, this is what's happening, or this is what's doing, or if this doesn't happen in the next 20 minutes, then we're going to do this. I think for me, I was, it was less about, I mean, obviously there was a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain, but I just wanted to like understand what was going on, or I just wanted to know that this was normal. And even if it wasn't like normal, like I know everything is different, I just needed to hear, I guess maybe I'm like a words of affirmation type of person, but I just needed to
I definitely am.
hear my midwives and my doula, and eventually like Jeb, I needed to hear, hey, if you don't progress in the next 20 minutes, we're going to try this. If you don't do this, then we're going to do this. And at one point, when I had kind of like, there wasn't a lot of progress happening, and I also thought, we had already talked about transferring to the hospital for a C-section. I kind of thought that was about to happen, that we were going to make the call to transfer. The head midwife was like, no, you're having this baby here. Let's do this. And just hearing those words, like, I don't know, switched something for me. So I think it makes a lot of sense that, not knowing what's going on, like,
yeah, exactly.
You're already vulnerable.
Oh yeah. And it's weird when it's your body and you don't know. It's like, just give me a roadmap. Like, even if it could change, like I just need some kind of idea of what's going to happen. It was, definitely, it was just nerve wracking. And then of course it's like everything that changes. It's like, well, is that good? Is that bad? Like, is he okay?
Right.
And so,
Yeah. And there's an element of like surrendering, right? You're like, okay, whatever needs to happen, let's do it. Surrendering, but you also have to have a certain element of trust in order to surrender. So if your OB is like nowhere to be found and that's already like the threat levels are already starting to rise and you're already starting to feel insecure, not like insecure, but just not necessarily safe. So yeah, it makes things really difficult. It sounds like if you were to ever have another one, you're going to be like, I need you to be here on this date at this time, no matter what.
Yep. Yeah. It's my particular OB, it was her son's birthday that night. So she was like, she gave it until I think 9 p.m. she said, but I hadn't delivered by then. And she was like, I have to and I was like, oh my gosh, like, of course, like go be with your son. So it was people that I didn't know, but it's like, by that point, it's like, I don't care. Like, let's just get this baby born, like make sure he's okay. And, all of that. And I think that they do a good job of, when he comes out and like his cords wrapped around him and stuff, like not looking panicked. Like they just look like it's just a normal day. Like everything's great. But, it's definitely, it was weird to see that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, tell me about when you started to your postpartum experience and postpartum depression, anxiety, the whole experience there.
Yeah. So my first son, I don't really feel like I had it. I mean, I think some of the typical kind of like hormone dumps that happen like a few days after you give birth and all of that. But with my second son, I think it was a lot of things that kind of played into it. I felt like I was neglecting my toddler. We were like best buds and he was still so little when I had my second son. And so I think that kind of played into it. Obviously, sleep deprivation was playing into it. I have a family history of depression, so I think I'm just kind of prone to it, especially after giving birth. And throughout like this journey kind of research I've done, it sounds like it can usually progressively get worse after each birth that you have. And so I don't know. I feel like a lot of it too is just the pressure of trying to do everything myself. It was like I didn't want anybody to do anything for me. I have people in my life would tell you that I like to be in control of things. So I think that when things feel out of control, it just makes it worse. And so I struggled for a long time and just didn't really say anything because I felt like as a counselor and things like that, like I should be able to figure this stuff out on my own. When I went to my 6-week appointment, I talked to my OB about it and she did postpartum depression screening. And she was like, you got a positive score or a positive screening or something like that for postpartum depression, and kind of talked to me a little bit about it. But I felt like things were getting better. Like at that 6-week mark, I felt like I was kind of in an upswing. And so I was like, I didn't want to take medication while I was nursing, just my kind of personal preference. And so I told her, I was like, I feel like I can handle this on my own. Like, I think I'm okay. But it got bad. It got really bad. And, my husband was great about checking in with me, but I feel like too, trying not to push, but always like, how are you feeling today? Like, kind of checking in, like, are you okay? Are you okay with the kids, like at home by yourself and all of that. And it wasn't really until he was probably 7 or 8 months old. I was talking to one of my friends, also a colleague that I work with, another high school counselor. And she was just like, Nikki, like, you have got to do something about this. Like, you can't keep suffering like this. It's just not okay. And you don't have to.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about like what it was, like how you were suffering? And when you say at 6 weeks, you felt like you were getting better, what was it that was maybe changing? And then how did it change again through that 7 to 8 month mark? just so that I think what's confusing is it's so overwhelming and there's so much that's happening and it's hard to navigate like, well, is this just is what I'm feeling normal for not having slept very well last night? Or, what are the things that we should look out for?
Yeah. For me, the biggest overriding thing was anxiety, like being so like anxious about everything. And one of my like kind of key indicators that I later learned is like an indicator of postpartum depression and anxiety was like an overwhelming fear about anybody else taking care of my baby. And it was like, I desperately needed a break, but I could not let anyone else help. I didn't want to leave the house. Like I didn't want to go anywhere, especially with the kids, because I was just like, no, like if I mess something up or, I wanted to stay here and be in control. Intrusive thoughts was kind of, and it's like interesting and hard to explain because it wasn't ever like I wanted to hurt my kids, but it was like, I'd be sitting there and be like, well, what if I just wasn't here? Or, what if he did fall down the stairs? Like, what would happen? And it wasn't like I was actually thinking about doing anything to them, but it's like, why am I thinking these things?
Yeah.
And a lot of like feeling like if I wasn't here, like they would just be better off. And so kind of, and around that 6-week mark, it was like, I felt like I was kind of in a bad place after a few weeks, started getting some help with sleep, which like made things a lot better. I started to like want to get out and exercise again. And so I felt like I was on the right path to get better, but it was just without like actually seeking help and seeking like professional help to get through that. It just kept getting worse. And I was just in this cycle of kind of staying here and not doing anything, not like going down to visit my parents that live an hour away, and all that. So it was just like isolating myself, I think was the biggest thing. And like feeling so uncontrollably anxious. Like I don't know how else to explain it, but it was just like an overwhelming, like I just couldn't function.
Yeah. You mentioned your husband, and I have, heard from a number of dads like, hey, I'm worried about my wife. I think she has postpartum depression. I've provided some resources, but she doesn't want to do anything about it. Is there did you reach out to him? How did you communicate that? And what do you think, like as a partner supporting someone going through this, what would you say would be like the most helpful thing that they could do?
I think checking in is like the biggest thing, but I do feel like sometimes it's hard with the person who's closest to you and around you so much. It's like, no, like, feeling like I can handle this on my own, like this isn't actually happening. But I think sometimes too, it takes a partner just saying like, look, like I know you're not okay and that's okay, but like, let's fix this together. Let's figure out what we need to do to make you feel better because you don't have to keep going on like this. And he was very, very supportive. And like I said, always checking in, but I feel like he didn't really know like what direction to point me or where to go. Mm-hmm. And that's it. My friend that I told you about when she was like, nope, like you need to take these steps. Like we, and I didn't even know this at the time, but our work has, like free counseling that you can access. And so she's like sending me the link, like, did you make your appointment? Like, I want to make sure, I want to know when this is scheduled, those kinds of things. Wow. And kind of just checking in and knowing, I think as a mom, when she was like, this is like normal, not normal, but common, I guess is a better way to say it. And that you don't have to keep going on like that. I think as moms, sometimes we feel like this is just part of the deal, and kind of working through it. And as a mom, it's like, you want to be the strong one for your kids and do what you need to protect them and take care of them. And so I think that it's, just the pressure that we put on ourselves sometimes to not say like, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And realizing that it's okay to say that, and having people to reach out to that, aren't going to judge you or know like where to access resources, or even if it's like a stranger that you don't really even know, like having the moms group, I feel like is huge, because so many women on there are talking about their experiences. And I feel like normalizing these things, I feel like it's shifting like in society over the last several years. And I think that that's going to be super helpful for women just moving forward.
Yeah. I love that, you say your friend would continue to check in on you and be like, hey, where's the appointment? Because I think sometimes, like, as women, we want to support our mom friends and be there and be encouraging. But then also we know, like, hey, sometimes you just need a little space. So, like, I've reached out to women who I know have, just gone through birth or something like that. And I'll say, hey, I'm here for you. Don't feel like you need to respond, but I'm here if you need anything, just because it's like not knowing how much to be there. But it sounds like your friend did a really, really good job of supporting you the way that you needed.
Yeah. It was about a month after he was born, my second son, Jameson. My mom, I'm really close with my mom, and she had already had a trip planned, like to go out of state. And I was like, it's just like unrealistically angry that she wasn't around. And my dad, who I'm fairly close with, but definitely different kind of relationship, but he had called just to check in and say, hey. And I just was like sobbing on the phone, and he was like, so he called my mom, and she was in Florida, and was like, I think like we need to, like, something needs to happen. And so she was calling my husband, like, we just need to like keep an eye on me, and not like that, but just, checking in and making sure that people were asking me kind of what's going on and if I was okay and what they can do to help. I think are the biggest things.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I guess like the resources that you used were the counseling through your work. Was there anything else that really stands out to you in terms of what helped you recover from that?
So the counseling, and I almost like hate saying this, but the counselor that I went to, unfortunately, was not very well versed in postpartum issues. So I spent most of my time kind of critiquing her counseling skills, it's awful. But on the way, like to and from, I would listen to podcasts of like other women and things that people had gone through. And so I felt like kind of just that alone time and like taking some time for me really like helped start moving me in the right direction. And then at the beginning of 2019, I set a goal for myself to some kind of fitness goal, because it was like, I felt like if I could find something that was like a healthy outlet. And so I decided to choose something that I didn't particularly like doing, which was running. Like, it's just not my thing. But I was like, I'm going to run a half marathon at the end of this year, because I know if I set this goal and kind of put it out there, then all of these other things, like street parking workouts, like going for runs, like these kinds of things will give me an outlet for myself, but get me healthy and like start feeling better and all those kinds of things. So that was probably like one of the biggest things. And then I also started looking into kind of alternative like type medicines and supplements like that I could do outside of like pharmaceuticals, and which this might be like a cliche Colorado thing, but like CBD oil I started using, and it made such a difference for my anxiety. And so I feel like it was just kind of a process of finding what worked for me, talking to people about it, and just like letting people know like, hey, like particularly my husband, like I'm having a day, like I just need some time, whatever that looks like. And so we just started carving that out and kind of making sure that we were having more regular check-ins and talking about it. And I feel like it made 2019 a much better year for me. It's just kind of, on the right track, and like feeling a lot better about things at the end of this year than I did at the end of 2018 for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So can you just tell me a little bit about the sleep, I guess, the sleep issues that Jameson was having that made you reach out to the sleep consultant? And then what would you say was like the biggest thing that changed that or helped that you learned from that?
So my first son was a pretty good sleeper right from the start. And so I think I just expected things to go that way. And when they were trending not in the same way, it was like, I think he was 3 weeks old and I was like, I'm not, and I knew about Sleepwise. And so I was like, I'm not doing this on my own. Like, I just want somebody to help me set up a plan and kind of guide me through this. And so I think that the biggest difference, obviously him starting to sleep well made a big difference because then I was sleeping well and that kind of translates to a lot of things. But the biggest thing for me was having someone else there just to support me, kind of guide me through that process. You know, obviously the sleep was the biggest thing, but just she was a new mom of 2 kids, close together as well. And having gone through these same things, like having someone else just to connect with and be like, you know, yeah, it's hard. Like this is hard stuff that we're doing. Being a mom is tough and it's okay, but kind of creating this plan for me to follow because I like plans. I like to know what's coming, just like we talked about. I think that it was helpful in so many ways. Like it obviously got him to be a good sleeper, which is, you know, I feel like super just important for a lot of things, but just having someone there to offer that support as a new mom, especially to 2 kids, and trying to navigate all of those things was just invaluable to me.
Awesome. Is there anything that you want to, I don't know, share about what you do as a pediatric sleep consultant? I feel like sometimes, I don't know, we don't even really know what that is or what that means. Is there anything you want to like just share about that?
Yeah. I think that a lot of times there's a lot of like differing opinions about sleep training in general, which I think is okay.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing for a mom to know coming from me is do whatever works for you. If you're doing something, then that's okay. Like whatever that is. But if what you're doing isn't working and you need help, it's okay to reach out and ask for help. What I do is a little bit different than some of the other ones that are out there because I believe that every baby is very different. What works maybe for your baby, you know, wouldn't work for Miranda's baby or something like that. Like it's just things change so much from person to person and baby to baby that I don't do like cookie cutter type plans. It's not just where you like send me your money and I shoot you off something and you have to follow it on your own. We work together. And I think that that's the biggest difference with me and what Sleepwise does is it's the support. Whether it's, you know, those early days, that's like almost a 6-month time that you work together. A little bit later might be 2 weeks. Older kids, it's like 3 weeks, but it's, you know, creating something together and then having that support to navigate through it. Where if something doesn't work right the first time, then we can change it, we can adjust it. But knowing that like, it's okay, whatever you're choosing to do that works for your family is great, but just knowing that you don't have to suffer through the exhaustion either, because it's, you know, it makes it tougher. I feel like being a mom, just being super exhausted all the time, and it's harder for babies being exhausted all the time too. So just knowing that support is out there, whether it's from me or somebody else, like just know that it's there. You know, so I think that that's the thing for moms is if it's working for you, that's awesome. Like not everybody has to sleep train, believe me. But you don't have to just kind of like grit your teeth and bear it and like get through it for the next 18 years with no sleep either.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of like what I really loved about the street parking moms community is that, I mean, it's, you know, thousands of women and we're all doing it a little bit differently. And somehow we all, I think, find a lot of mutual respect for the different ways that it needs to be done. And it's like, I know that you're doing your best. And it might look like one thing, it might look like another, it might look different from mine. And like my experience now as a new mom is there are so many things that I didn't know that I needed to know about, and not that I need to choose any one way, but just that there are these different ways, so I can sit down and have a conversation with another mom and just know like, oh, right, okay, this is what you're going through, or this is what your experience is like, and this is mine, and this is where we come together, and this is what they're different, and this is how we can learn from each other. I think similar to like there's a lot of women that are going to go and do a different type of fitness program or nutrition plan or whatever. It's like, cool. If you've got something that works for you, awesome. I actually I don't care which one it is. I have something that has worked for me and that I believe in, and I just want to share that information. But like more than anything, I just want you to have tools and resources and support, and that's it.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's been really cool to see that evolve on our moms group.
It is so cool. There's so many different, just like you said, it's so many different perspectives and experiences. And I just love like how much people share and what they put out there, and, questions that get asked. I think there was one not too long ago, somebody was like, sorry if this is TMI, but it's like, no, like this group doesn't have to be that way, because I'm sure somebody else is wondering the exact same thing. Yeah. So I think it's just amazing. I love connecting with women, and just like you said, sharing experiences and realizing that, something maybe that worked for me wouldn't work for somebody else, or, vice versa. Like I might not know of something else that's out there that could potentially help what I'm doing, or something like that. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. My hope is that, for a new mom, or really anyone, I guess, but to be able to hear something like this and be like, oh, okay, maybe when she finds herself at 6 weeks postpartum, stressed, unsure of how she's feeling and the thoughts she's having, being like, oh man, I heard about this. I should probably ask for some help. Yeah.
Definitely.
Is there anything that you want to add about like the role that street parking has played in this journey for you? Yeah.
It's honestly been it's just been so helpful. I think that not only just having like actual workouts that I can do that cater to what I like to do, but being able to, like, I don't feel like I have to like look any certain way to go to the gym. I can throw stuff on, run downstairs. Just like you said, I have 30 minutes. I can get something in. Like it can all be made to work for whatever my day is. But I think that.
Oh man, you're frozen.
Above other things, because you can ask a question about something that's going on and, 52 people are going to respond. Or if you're having a bad day or just need that motivation, like there's, thousands of people out there that are going to reach out and encourage you when they don't know you from the next person.
Yeah.
So it's made me feel like I have like a fitness home again. And I felt like we lost that when we left where we were at in Georgia. And it was such a big part of who I was. Yeah. And so I feel like having that again as a mom, and as a woman just in general is just, it's so helpful. It's so helpful, like feeling like I have somewhere to go for those things and I don't have to go anywhere to do them. It's just, I feel like there's such a need for it. And anytime somebody's asking, I'm like, you have to check this out. You can do it at home. Like you don't even really need that much stuff.
Yeah.
Like dumbbells or whatever, and you can go through it. But yeah, it's just finding the things that have worked for me to make me feel kind of whole again. And this is definitely like a big part of that, kind of starting this year off on the right foot.
Awesome. Okay. Is there anything else that you would want to add, that you want to share? Anything left?
I don't think so. I think it's awesome opening up these conversations for women because, like you said, just knowing that there are other women out there who have gone through, you know, whether it's my story or your story or the next person's story, but just being able to hear that you're not the only one that has gone through something like this is so important. I think it's important for women. I think it's important for moms. And I just think it's going to be so helpful for so many. So thank you for putting everything together.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for being a part of it, for sharing your story, for opening up about everything, and thank you for the support that you give to the moms in our community.
Of course.
Yeah, I know it's really helpful. You've saved a lot of moms late at night.
I always, when I'm working with a street parking mom, part of what I talk a lot about is consistency. And I'm like, I promise I didn't rip that off of street parking. Like it just applies to so many things and all over the place. But yeah, consistency is so important. So yeah.
Awesome. If the listeners want to find you on social media, what is your Instagram handle or how would they do that?
Yeah, Instagram is probably like the best place, and it's sleepwise_Nikki, Nikki. I'm also on Facebook, just Nikki Smith, which can be a little bit trickier to find because, me and all of the other Smiths out there.
Yeah.
And email, you can always email me. It's just nsmith@sleepwiseconsulting.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki. This was so great.
Thanks, Carolina. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the Facebook group.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. That is it, you guys. If you liked what you heard, you can share this with another mom or just someone that you think might benefit from it. And if you want to know more about the Street Parking Moms community, you can check us out on the Street Parking website on the Moms page. Thanks a lot, you guys. See you next time.